Hey ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be talking about how to make your lure setup. So it's taking, in this series of videos, our very first one of the 4 most productive lures that we use. That video is here. And then the 4 pieces of terminal tackle that we already have, that video is here. And then this video, which is going to show you how to combine those two. And so I'm going to start out with my 4-inch worm. And you can use this same concept for a 5-inch worm or any type of worm. Again, I like the 4-inch yum dinger. I also like the 5-inch yum dinger. And typically what I'm going to use with that is a EWG hook. That means extra wide gap hook. And I'm going to show you exactly how to rig this. Now, I actually consider the part with the slit here to be the top. So whenever you're rigging up a lure, you want to know what's the top, what do you intend to be the top, what do you intend to be the bottom. And so I intend this part here that doesn't have that indentation to be the bottom. And so what I want to do is take my hook like this, take my worm with, again, what I consider to be the top pointing that way, the open part of the hook pointing that way, and I just want to stick it right into the top. So we're going to bring that point right into the top. Now it's up to you how far you want to go down, but as you can see, there's a little barb. Hopefully you can see that little barb right there. I want to come down about to that barb and then come out of the lure, just like that. Now what you're going to do is, instead of moving the bait, we're going to keep the bait still. We're just going to bring this hook all the way down, right? Just like that. And that's what it should look like for you. Now we're just going to turn the hook. I'm just going to slowly turn it this way, just like this. So I'm going to turn it like this. Trying to make it so you can see it, and just ease this on up over this little keeper part here. So now your setup should look like that. Sorry. So you have your little eye part here where you're going to tie the hook. And now you can see exactly where this hook should come through the bait, because that's really important. Because you see how straight that lure is right there? That's how straight you want your lure when it's in the water. What I found is, if there's a bunch, if there's a curl or a curve and it's not completely straight, I don't get as good of a result. So I always want to make sure it's straight. So what you want to do is pinch right there so you know exactly where it's supposed to go in. Now, because I'm right-handed, I'm going to switch this because I do this better with my right hand. But the downside is you won't be able to see. So I'm showing you right here, okay? And then what you want to do is take this hook and go through just like that. And it's straight. And as you can see, the tip of the lure is hidden inside there. And you're good to go. So I'm going to do that one more time just so you can follow along with me. And then I'm going to do it with a Kitech, because I do rig it like that sometimes. And so this is just a 2-aught hook as well. Again, sometimes I use a 2 or a 3. So again, I consider that to be the top of the bait. So I'm going to have the top of the bait pointing that way, open part of the hook pointed that way. Hold it just like that. I'm going to put it through, go to the barb. Gonna hold the worm still, gonna bring the hook all the way down and turn it. There's a lot of different ways you can do it. I just want to make it simple by holding the worm still. Again, you're gonna see right there where it should come through the bait, right there. So you want to hold right there. Again, I'm gonna switch with my other hand just because I'm right-handed. So I'm gonna hold it right there, and then what I'm gonna do is put it through that center right there, just like that. Then I'm going to inch it up so it rests right in the middle. Now, some people don't like that. Some people don't like the little indentation. I like it. I feel like it's a good way to hide the hook. It allows it to come through grass and weeds and everything else without getting hooked up. And there you go, perfectly straight. And what happens is, as you're pulling this through the water as it's falling, when the bass comes and bites down, that hook is exposed, and that's when you pull, that's when you set that hook goes right in. And now lastly, I'm going to show you that same thing with the Kitech. So again, this is the bottom of my bait, which they actually have an open part on the bottom of the Kitech too. And there's a ridge on the very top of it. Hopefully you can see that okay. But again, the bottom of the bait, or the top of the bait, sorry, is pointed that way. Open part of the hook pointed that way. So I'm going through, same thing to the barb, coming out, gonna go all the way down, turn the hook. And this is a Kitech that's been used before. That's why it kind of looks like that. And then you're gonna find out, where do I need to go through the bait so that it's straight. The key is to make sure you go through right there. So you wanna hold it right there to make sure you're going through. Again, I'm gonna switch it because I'm right-handed. And I'm just gonna go through the bottom of the lure. Like that. Sorry, the wind's blowing so hard now. Never, wind doesn't blow until you want to make a video, and it just blows like crazy. But there you go. And that's not as straight as I would like it to be, but you can see that the hook is still buried in that indention. And so same thing, this guy's swimming through the water like this, bass comes, bites, that hook gets exposed, boom, you set the hook. And that's how you Texas rig a soft plastic, or at least that's how I do my 4-inch worms and my Kitechs. Now, if you want to, you can obviously add a sliding weight to it. A lot of people use a tungsten weight and put it on there just to give it a little sink if they want to. I typically use mine weedless. If you're just starting, I would encourage you to use it weedless as well. Next thing we're going to use is the Shroom Z Ned Rig jig head. And I use this for a lot of things. So I use it for my single tail grub, which I'm going to show you how I do that in a second. I also use it for a Ned rig sometimes, and I actually use it on the Kitech sometimes, even though I like the other terminal tackle that I'm going to show you in just a second a lot better for the Kitech. But typically, if I'm going to fish this lure, then, because again, you can just get this jig head and it'll work for all the applications. It's just which tool is going to help you land fish better, and I think there's a better tool than this, but it can still work. So again, identify the top of the bait. I consider this to be the top because it's going to run through the water like this, and so you'll see that flat part along the top here and that curly part at the bottom. So I consider that the bottom of the bait. So in this setup, I want the bottom of the bait pointing toward the hook, right? Bottom of the bait pointing toward the hook, open part of the hook here. And what I want to do, hopefully you can see this without my fingers blocking it, is also figure out, so I'll do this many times and figure out, okay, how far do I need to go into the bait? Because again, you want it to be as straight as possible. So I'll look at it like this and kind of eyeball it and see where it needs to go. But what you want to do is come through the top of there once you've eyeballed it, and now we're holding the hook still. We're moving the plastic, not the hook. The last time, or the jig head, the last time we kept the plastic still and moved the hook. This time we're not moving the jig head or the hook at all. And so we're just gonna go straight down, bend it over, and it starts to come out right here, as you can see, and then we're just gonna slide it on down onto it. Now, that's not as straight as I would like to have it, but it'll work for this demonstration. So there you go. You're gonna pull that across through the water. As you're pulling it through the water, something chasing it is gonna do that to it, will come up, do that to it, and you're just gonna pull much easier hook set. Now, the other thing I like to try to do, this is a secret tip. Again, some people will say, Titus, this won't make a difference at all. I personally do it all the time, and I catch a lot of fish. So if you can see, and I don't know how well the camera will pick this up, there's a line, there's an actual ridge here on the top. It's a seam right there on the top. And what I like to do is try to line up the hook directly with that seam. And the reason I do that is because it makes it more symmetrical. Like, as things move through the water, most wildlife is symmetrical. And so if it's not, it's just off a little bit. And again, some people will tell you that doesn't make a difference at all. I like to make it as straight as possible and symmetrical as possible. So I'm gonna do it one more time for you. So I like to find that seam. Again, make sure the top of the bait is pointed toward the hook. I know about where I want it to come through. And so what I'll do is come through, try to get that top part, and then push it all the way on there. And boom, there you go. That's how I set it up. Fish it just like that. Now, I'm also going to show you how I do this with the Kitech, because I use the Kitech for this as well. Same concept, top of the bait, point it toward, look at the salt. Can you see the salt that came out of the lure? That's on the hook right there. That's a good sign. That's a good thing. Salt is a good thing. Same concept. I'm going to look at about how far I want it to come through, and I'm going to bring it down. I'm going to push the plastic. It's going to bend. I went too deep. Go just a little bit more shallow. Boom. And this one has been used before, so it's a little tough, but boom, there we go. And this gives a little more action, a little more flair with the tail. That's why I like this smaller one sometimes, just because if I want more action, like look at all the action with that tail right there. Things flapping all over the place. It works really well. But again, I don't usually use this now just because I have the other one that I'm going to show you. And then last but not least, if I'm using the Ned rig, I'll typically use this as well. And same concept, figure out where I want to go in the bait. I'll usually go down into the bait, just to what we would call the egg sac of the worm. So that's this part here. If you can see, it's ribbed, but then you see that one part in the middle that isn't ribbed at all. And boom, there you go, perfectly straight. Now the cool thing is, which I'm not gonna do the Z-Man right now just because it can be a hassle to take off, but the Z-Man, when you put it in the water, it'll stand straight up just like that. This is only staying straight up because of the way I'm holding it, and I'm trying to balance it so it stays up. But this will typically fall over one way or the other, but this is what it's gonna be doing, you know, when you got it down there, you want it waving around like that. Or you want it swimming like this, because a lot of times I will swim it through the water as well. But again, you want it as straight as possible. Now we're going to move on to the jig head that I do really like now, which is the tungsten Kitech jig head. Again, it's a little bit bigger. It doesn't have that barb like the other one had. This just has kind of a round cylinder piece. Still, it will cause the bait to slide on. I think it slides on a little bit easier. And ironically enough, I feel like it stays on better onto this. And I think it's because the barb here is longer than with the other one. So here we go. Top of the bait, open hook. Got to know about where we want it to go through. This one's going to go down a little bit further. And again, you can trial and error this. I've done it so many times now that I can pretty much eyeball it and know where I want it to go through. But that's what you do. And that's still not as straight as I would like it to be. You see this little hump? Can you see that little indentation hump there? And again, some people will say, Titus, you're being too much of a perfectionist. That doesn't matter. I think it does matter. You want it as straight as possible. But for the purposes of demonstrating it, I think you can see how it's supposed to actually work. Now, something that's really cool is I have a chartreuse Kitech here that is allows you to see right into it. So again, same concept. Just gonna go right into that. See it? Hopefully you can see it in there. Hopefully the sun is doing it justice. And I'm gonna come out right in the middle. Boom. And you can see it right in there. And so last but not least, and this is the same technique. Again, this is the Rugby jig, but there's a lot of different names for them. Just has a weighted, a weight that's attached to the hook as one piece versus two separate pieces. And typically I will put any type of 4-inch worm on there or bigger. Like I'll just use this. I'll use two examples real quick. This is a thumper, I believe. It's a Yum Thumper. It's got a little paddle tail there on the end. As you can see, it's a little bit longer of a lure. Still has an indentation here on it. And so I'll use this sometimes if I want to jig something off the bottom and I want to swim it at the same time. So there's a lot of different applications you can use, but same concept, still holding the hook going this way, top of the lure pointing that way. So we're going into it from the bottom. Gonna go in just enough for that barb to get through, or more, just depending. Again, because this part is where it's gonna kind of keep right there. So see that? Kind of keeps right on there. And now you can see where it's supposed to go through. And you see how that lines up with, hope I'm not too close, how it lines up with the slit that's in the top. And so what we're gonna do is then line that up and pinch it. So let me turn it around so you can see it. Pinch it right there. Again, I'm right-handed, so I'm gonna turn it around and I'm just gonna pull it just a little bit because again, I want it to be straight, not bunched up like this. I want it to be straight. So I'm gonna do that. Then I'm gonna come through, boom. Now you'll notice, and for the sake of this example, I probably should use a bigger hook because this hook now doesn't sit inside this indentation. It's actually coming above it, which sometimes is okay, just depending on what I'm doing. But if you want it buried, obviously you can skin hook it, but there you go. You see it's pretty straight. The wind would stop blowing it. And then you can bounce it along the bottom, you can swim it, bounce it along the bottom and swim it. And that head will make some noise, especially if you can hit some rocks or gravel bottom or something. It's gonna make some noise for you. Now this is probably not the size jig head that you wanna use. As you can see, it's a 1/8 ounce. I kind of use it more like a finesse when I'm doing that. I use a 1/8 ounce. But now I'm gonna put it on a, let me use black again. Now I'm gonna put it on a 4-inch yum dinger. Same concept. Hopefully you're practicing along with me so you can see how that goes right there. Now we're gonna slide this guy right in there. Boom. And we're straight. Ready to go, ready to bounce this guy all over the place. Even if we swim it a little bit, we got some tail action going there. Tail action is always your friend. Because again, it's just going through the water. I don't personally know what fish think it is, but it works. So anyway, those are my 4 most productive lures, the 4 most productive setups that I use with the 4 pieces of terminal tackle that I have most often on my boat. So hopefully between all 3 of the videos that have now been put together, you can go out and replicate that, make a good cast, and hopefully land a nice bass. So with all that said, feel free to leave any questions you have below in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, if you're not already subscribed, there's a button right down below to my left, your right, that you can hit. You can also ring the bell notification. All that is free. It costs you nothing. It just lets you know every time that I upload content. And of course, if you enjoyed this content, give it a good thumbs up. Hope you have a good day and a good night. We'll see you next time.